The morning my son-in-law changed the locks on my house, he left me sitting on the front porch in my slippers. I was 71 years old. The house behind me had been mine for 38 years, and the man refusing to let me inside had lived there for exactly 11 months. "Marcus," I said, pressing the doorbell for the third time. "The code isn't working." He opened the door only a few inches. His broad shoulder filled the space between the door and the frame. Behind him, I could hear music playing and men laughing in my dining room. "I changed it," he said. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. "Why? I have clients here. I can't have people walking in and out whenever they feel like it." People. That was what I had become inside my own home. Not his mother-in-law. Not the woman who had allowed him and my daughter to move in after their apartment lease ended. Not the widow who paid the mortgage off 12 years earlier. Just people. I went to the pharmacy, I said. "I live here." Marcus looked over his shoulder as if my voice might embarrass him. "You should have called first." Something cold passed through my chest. I should call before entering my own house?
He stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind him. "Vivian, we've been meaning to talk to you about this." My first name. He had stopped calling me Mrs. Brooks 6 months earlier. Then he stopped calling me Mom. Now even my name sounded like an inconvenience when he said it. "Talk to me about what?" "Boundaries." I almost laughed. He had turned my dining room into an office, parked his truck across both spaces in my driveway and filled my garage with boxes from a business that had never made a profit. Now he wanted to teach me about boundaries. "Lena knows about this?" I asked. My daughter appeared behind the glass. For one brief second, I felt relieved. Then she opened the door and stared at the floor. "Mom, Marcus has an important presentation today. I need to get inside. You could go to Aunt Denise's for a few hours." I studied my daughter's face. Lena had always been gentle. As a child, she used to cry when other children killed insects. She apologized to furniture when she bumped into it. But during the past year, she had learned a new kind of silence. The kind that protected her husband while slowly erasing everyone else. "My medication is inside." "I'll get it," she said quickly. "My purse is inside." "I'll bring that too." "My life is inside, Lena." Her eyes finally lifted toward mine. Marcus sighed dramatically. "This is exactly the problem. Everything becomes emotional with you." He reached into his pocket and handed Lena the new keypad code written on a piece of paper. "Do not give her this until tonight." He said it while looking directly at me. That was the moment something changed. Not loudly. There was no shouting, no crying and no dramatic speech. I simply understood that I was no longer dealing with a misunderstanding. Marcus knew exactly what he was doing. And Lena had decided it was easier to disappoint me than confront him. She brought my purse, medication and a light jacket onto the porch. Then she closed the door. I stood there for several seconds, listening to the lock click. Marcus had made one serious mistake. He believed locking me outside meant he controlled what was inside. But houses are not controlled by keypad codes. They are controlled by signatures. And every important signature connected to that property belonged to me. I called a rideshare and went to my sister Denise's house. She opened the door, looked at my slippers and immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" I placed my pharmacy bag on her kitchen table. "Marcus locked me out." She stared at me. "Of your house?" "He says he has clients there." Denise pulled out a chair. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down." That surprised both of us. For years, sitting down had been my response to conflict. Sit down and calm everyone. Sit down and hear both sides. Sit down and give people time. But time had not made Marcus kinder. It had only made him comfortable. "I need your computer," I said. "What are you doing?" "I'm finding out what else has been changed without my permission." I logged into my bank account first. The mortgage had been paid off, but the property taxes, insurance and utilities still came through my accounts. Everything appeared normal. Then I checked my credit report. There it was. A recent inquiry from a lending company I had never contacted. The inquiry was connected to a home equity application. My hands became very still on the keyboard. Denise leaned over my shoulder. "What is that?" "I don't know yet." I called the lender. After verifying my identity, the representative explained that an application had been started using my address, estimated property value and personal information. The application had not been completed because additional identification and my signature were required. The contact number on the application belonged to Marcus. I asked the representative to cancel it immediately and flag the application as suspected fraud. Then I froze my credit with all 3 credit bureaus. Denise watched me without speaking. When I finished, she asked the question neither of us wanted answered. "Do you think Lena knew?" I don't know. That hurt more than saying yes. At 3 o'clock, I called an attorney named Rebecca Sloan. Rebecca had handled my husband's estate when he died. She was practical, direct and almost impossible to intimidate. I explained the lock, the lender and the living arrangement. Did they pay rent? She asked. No. Is there a written lease? No. Have you signed anything giving either of them an ownership interest? Absolutely not. Good. Do not return a loan. Do not shut off essential services. Do not throw out their property. We will handle this correctly. Correctly. That word steadied me. Marcus thrived in confusion. He changed plans, retold conversations and claimed people had misunderstood him. Documents did not become confused. Rebecca arranged for me to collect clothing and personal items with a civil standby the following morning. She also began preparing the proper notice ending their permission to occupy the house. That evening, Lena called. Mom, where are you? With Aunt Denise. You didn't come back. I'm aware. Marcus says you're trying to punish us. Did Marcus use my information to apply for a loan against my house? The silence lasted 6 seconds. I counted every one. I don't know what you're talking about. The lender has his phone number. He probably just wanted to see what options were available. Using my identity? He said the money could help all of us. All of us? He wants to expand the business. Once it grows, we could take over the expenses around the house. You have lived there for 11 months without paying expenses. We were getting established. No, Lena, I was carrying you. Her breathing changed. Why are you talking like this? Because I finally heard how you spoke to me this morning. I didn't mean. You handed me my purse and locked the door. Marcus was under pressure. So was I was the one standing outside. She began crying. Once, that sound would have ended the conversation. I would have apologized for upsetting her, even when she had hurt me. But tears do not automatically make someone right. I love you, I said. But I will not pretend today didn't happen. What are you going to do? You will receive written notice from my attorney. Notice for what? To leave my house. Marcus grabbed the phone. His voice arrived like thunder. You can't evict your own family. I'm not discussing this with you. You agreed we could stay. And I am legally ending that arrangement. You're acting crazy. I have also reported the loan application. He became silent. For the first time since I had known him, Marcus had no immediate answer. Then he tried a softer voice. Vivian, nobody was stealing anything. It was a business strategy. A strategy that required my house and my identity. You would have benefited. I benefited from stopping it. I ended the call. The next morning, I returned with a police officer standing near the doorway while I collected my belongings. Marcus remained in the kitchen, filming me with his phone. This is unbelievable, he announced for the camera. An elderly woman is being manipulated into destroying her daughter's life. I continued folding my clothes. You hear me? He demanded. I hear you. And? I no longer confuse noise with authority. He lowered the phone. Lena stood in the hallway with swollen eyes. Mom, please don't do this. I closed my suitcase. I didn't change the locks. That was one morning. It was the morning I discovered what the past 11 months had become. Marcus stepped forward. The officer shifted slightly, and Marcus stopped. You need us, he said. I looked around my bedroom. Several of my framed photographs had been moved into a closet. My late husband's reading lamp was gone. Boxes from Marcus's company were stacked against the wall. No, I said. You needed me to believe that. The formal notice was served that afternoon. Rebecca instructed me to stop paying for Marcus's business subscriptions and the additional phone line I had opened for him. I removed him as an authorized user from my credit card and changed every password connected to my finances. I did not cancel the home's electricity or water. Everything was done according to legal advice. But the conveniences Marcus had quietly attached to my bank account ended immediately. Within 2 days, the messages began. The business software stopped working. The premium phone plan was disconnected. A restaurant charge was declined. Marcus sent me 17 messages in 1 hour. You are sabotaging my company. You are putting your daughter in danger. You are going to regret humiliating me. Rebecca told me not to respond. Instead, she documented every message. 4 days later, Lena asked to meet me alone. She arrived at Denise's house carrying a large envelope. Without saying hello, she emptied the contents across the kitchen table. Credit card statements, past due notices, business loans, a demand letter from a former customer. I found these in his truck, she whispered. I picked up one statement. The balance was more than $42,000. How much did you know? He told me the business had debt, but he said it was normal. Did you sign these? Some of them. Did you read them? She shook her head. He said paperwork made me anxious. I looked at my daughter carefully. Marcus had not gained control all at once. He had built it through small permissions. He handled the paperwork because it was easier. He spoke during disagreements because he was louder. He made the plans because he claimed to understand money. And every time Lena surrendered one decision, he returned for another. He wanted the loan against your house to pay these off, she said. He told me once the debt was gone, the company would finally succeed. Did he tell you he used my personal information? He said you had already agreed. I leaned back. There are moments when anger burns. This was not one of them. This anger froze. He lied to both of us, Lena said. Yes. What am I supposed to do? That depends on what kind of life you want. I can't afford an apartment. You have a job. My paycheck goes into our joint account. Open another account. He'll be furious. I know. He'll say I betrayed him. People who benefit from your silence often call honesty betrayal. Lena covered her face. I don't know how I let this happen. You let one small thing happen many times. She cried for several minutes. I sat beside her, but I did not promise to repair everything. Love could sit with her pain. Love did not have to remove every consequence. By the end of that week, Lena had opened an individual bank account and redirected her paycheck. She contacted a financial counselor and met privately with a divorce attorney. She stayed at Denise's house while deciding what to do next. You are going to regret humiliating me. Rebecca told me not to respond. Instead, she documented every message. 4 days later, Lena asked to meet me alone. She arrived at Denise's house carrying a large envelope. Without saying hello, she emptied the contents across the kitchen table. Credit card statements, past due notices, business loans, a demand letter from a former customer. I found these in his truck, she whispered. I picked up one statement. The balance was more than $42,000. How much did you know? He told me the business had debt, but he said it was normal. Did you sign these? Some of them. Did you read them? She shook her head. He said paperwork made me anxious. I looked at my daughter carefully. Marcus had not gained control all at once. He had built it through small permissions. He handled the paperwork because it was easier. He spoke during disagreements because he was louder. He made the plans because he claimed to understand money. And every time Lena surrendered one decision, he returned for another. He wanted the loan against your house to pay these off, she said. He told me once the debt was gone, the company would finally succeed. Completely. I bought a new chair and placed it near the front window. Not the old chair I had slowly disappeared inside, but a wide chair with firm arms and a bright yellow pillow. When Lena visited 3 days later, she paused at the entrance. She no longer had a key. She knocked. That mattered. May I come in? She asked. Yes. She looked at the blue walls. Dad would have hated this color. I know. She smiled. Then, unexpectedly, I laughed. It was the first time either of us had laughed in weeks. We sat at the dining table. I filed for divorce, she said. How do you feel? Terrified. That doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. He says he's going to change. Perhaps he will. You don't believe him. I believe change requires more than losing access to someone else's money. She nodded. I found a small apartment near work. Can you afford it? Barely. Barely is still yours. Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. I thought you would offer to let me move back. I considered it. Why didn't you? Because you need to discover that you can stand without using me as the ground. She looked down at her hands. That sounds harsh. It is less harsh than teaching you to depend on rescue. We sat quietly for a while. Then she asked whether I wanted help hanging the family photographs. Together, we placed them back on the wall. Not exactly where they had been before. Some things should not return to their old positions. Months passed. Lena's apartment was small, noisy and completely hers. She learned to budget, cook for one and read every document before signing it. She attended counseling. I attended counseling too. People assume that reclaiming your life instantly makes you feel powerful. Sometimes it makes you feel guilty. I had to learn that guilt was not always evidence of wrongdoing. Sometimes guilt was simply the discomfort of no longer doing what other people expected. I started hosting a monthly gathering at my house for older homeowners. We called it the Front Door Circle. We invited attorneys, financial counselors and fraud prevention specialists to speak. Women arrived carrying questions they had been afraid to ask. Should I add my son to my deed? My niece wants access to my bank account. Is that safe? My grandson says I should sign documents I don't understand. I never told them what decision to make. I told them to slow down. Read everything. Keep independent accounts. Ask questions. Never sign something because a loved one becomes angry when you hesitate. One afternoon, a woman named Clara remained after everyone else left. My daughter says boundaries mean I don't love her, she said. I looked toward my front door. The new keypad glowed softly beside it. Boundaries don't measure how much you love someone, I told her. They reveal whether that person can love you without controlling you. That evening, Lena came for dinner. She brought groceries she had purchased herself. After we ate, she washed the dishes while I sat in my blue living room watching the evening news. She walked past the television and paused. Too loud? I asked. She shook her head. It's your house. I picked up the remote. For months, I had thought the story began when Marcus changed the locks. But it had started much earlier. It began every time I remained silent to keep someone comfortable. Every time I accepted disrespect because correcting it seemed exhausting. Every time I confused being needed with being valued. Changing the locks had only made the truth impossible to ignore. Here is what I know now. A home is not merely a building with your name recorded at the courthouse. It is the place where your voice should not require permission. Family members may need help. They may need patience, shelter, or another opportunity. But help should not require you to disappear. Love should not demand your password, signature, property, or silence. And anyone who becomes cruel when you establish a boundary was benefiting from the absence of one. Marcus believed the code on the front door gave him control. He was wrong. The most important lock had been inside me. It opened the moment I stopped asking permission to protect what was already mine. That night, after Lena left, I walked through the quiet house and checked the doors. Then I returned to my chair by the window. I turned the television down one click, not because anyone ordered me to, but because I preferred it that way. For the first time in nearly a year, every sound, every wall, and every decision inside that house belonged to me again. And I finally understood the difference between living somewhere and being at home. What would you have done if a family member changed the locks on your house? And tell me which city you're listening from.